Hi, my name's Rose. This Thanksgiving, my dad stood up at the dinner table, looked me dead in the eyes, and called me a leech. He said I drained this family dry. Funny, because I paid every bill. I fixed their house. I fed their dog. I covered their insurance. But behind my back, my mom was using that insurance for fillers. My sister took credit for every gift I gave. And my parents? They were planning to declare me unstable, to steal what was left of my life. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, calculated, until I found proof. Every lie, every transaction, every erasure. So I packed my things and left something behind they never saw coming. Curious what that was. Thanksgiving had always been a performance in our house. Smiles forced, traditions followed to the letter, and tension tucked neatly under linen napkins. I woke up early that morning, the way I had every year, to cook while the others slept. Turkey in the oven by 7, pecan pie cooled on the window ledge by 10, table set for 10 people, not including me. I never set a place for myself anymore. The house looked like something out of a Southern holiday magazine. Candles glowing, garlands wrapped around the staircase, every surface screaming warmth and welcome. But none of it could cover the chill that had settled deep in my bones. I'd bought every ingredient, paid the electric bill that powered the oven, cleaned the stained tablecloth. Again. I did it because someone had to, and for years I'd convinced myself it made me part of something necessary. As I stood back, arms crossed, watching the family trickle in with loud greetings and clinking bottles of cheap wine, I thought, just for a second, maybe this year would be different. It wasn't. Dinner had just been served. Plates were full, conversations loud, laughter just loud enough to feel fake. Sterling, my father, had taken his usual seat at the head of the table like some Southern god of judgment. I was reaching for the cornbread when it happened. "You know what?" he said, suddenly loud enough to drop every fork in the room. "You're nothing but a leech, Rose, living off our kindness. You can't stay here anymore." Time slowed. My hand stopped midair. Nobody moved. Nobody said a damn word. Aunt Betty blinked hard. Tilda froze, wineglass still halfway to her lips. Mom didn't even flinch. Just shifted a few green beans on her plate like this was normal. You could have heard a pin drop on the hardwood. I looked around the table, then back at him. My heart thudded, not from shock, but from recognition. He'd been waiting to say it. Probably practiced the line in his head. He looked proud, triumphant. I turned to my mother. She didn't meet my eyes. After a pause that felt like a full minute, the others picked their forks back up. The clinking resumed like someone had hit play on a paused movie. The moment passed for them. For me, it split something wide open. Mom leaned toward me, her voice low, a whisper meant for no one but me. "You'll still handle the insurance this month, right?" she asked softly. "I've got that clinic appointment Tuesday." It landed harder than Sterling's insult. I blinked. She wasn't even trying to defend me. Just assumed I'd keep paying for her health coverage even after being thrown out like last week's leftovers. And her voice, steady, calm, like asking me to pass the salt. I managed a smile, nodded, said nothing. My insides were ice. I excused myself from the table with a quiet, "I'll help clear." No one objected. No one stopped me. That was the worst part. They'd already moved on. In the kitchen, I stood at the sink, washing plates I had bought, with water I paid for, using a sponge I replaced every other week. I let the steam blur my vision. My body moved on autopilot, but my mind started taking notes. Every expense, every sacrifice, every time I said yes when I should have walked out. I thought of the times I worked doubles to cover the groceries, the bonus I used to fix Sterling's truck, the weeks I ate instant noodles so they could keep the lights on. All I could hear now was my father's voice echoing in my skull. Nothing but a leech. That word didn't just insult me. It rewrote me. In their eyes, I wasn't the daughter who held the house together. I was dead weight, a parasite. I glanced down at the napkin I had folded earlier, placed at my mother's spot, white linen, monogrammed with my initials. She didn't even notice, or maybe she did and didn't care. I rinsed the last plate, shut off the faucet. The silence in the kitchen was thick, but in it, a thought formed, sharp and cold. This isn't a family. It's a contract. And I never signed it. Later, in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, fully clothed, staring at nothing. There were no tears, no dramatic shaking hands, just a dull clarity that settled in my chest like lead. They called me a leech. Let's see how they live without their host. The house smelled like coffee and biscuits when I opened my bedroom door. You'd think nothing had happened the night before. No harsh words, no scenes made. No daughter gutted in front of relatives over green bean casserole. Just the soft hum of the old percolator and my mother humming along with it. I moved quietly, barefoot on hardwood, avoiding eye contact with the world I used to belong to. Tilda passed me in the hallway. Her expression didn't change, not a wince, just a flat, rehearsed look of someone clocking out emotionally. "You're overreacting," she said as she passed, not even slowing down, overreacting. I stood there, stunned for a second, like someone had swatted the wind out of me with 3 syllables. That was her whole summary of what happened last night. Of course. In this house, words like overreacting were code for don't make this harder for the rest of us. I walked into the study, pretending I was looking for something, anything to justify my presence. A paper, a bill, some form left unsigned. Really, I needed to see if there was any trace of me left in this home besides unpaid invoices and groceries. That's when I saw the folder on the desk, labeled Home Planning, December. My stomach went still. I opened it. First page. A floor plan with sticky notes rearranging rooms. Rose's room. Storage. Workout room. Second page. A printed email thread dated 2 weeks ago. Subject line. Transition timeline, post-holiday. Body. Let's not bring anything up until after Thanksgiving. She'll be gone by then. The handwriting in the margins was my father's. Try not to make it emotional. Keep her calm. I didn't sit down. I didn't cry. I just closed the folder slowly, set it back down, and realized something brutal. They weren't mad. They weren't heated. They were organized. I wasn't being pushed out in a moment of rage. They'd planned it like a renovation. In the living room, the seating chart from the night before was still pinned near the fireplace. It had been laminated. Of course it had. Everything here had to look polished, permanent. My eyes scanned the list, row by row. Rachel, kitchen help. That was the name next to the seat I'd set for myself, the one at the far end of the table, near the window, the one I ended up in after placing every dish. Rachel, not Rose. It hit me all at once. That awkward moment during dinner when one of our neighbors leaned over and said, "Oh, you must be the caterer's daughter." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. They hadn't even told the guests I was part of the family. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't family. I was service. I tore the laminated list from the wall, folded it carefully, and slipped it into my pocket. Not out of sentiment, but because evidence matters when history gets rewritten. Back in my room, I opened my laptop. I pulled up my online banking and started reviewing which bills I was still paying. Electric, internet, phone line, pest control. Pest control? The irony. I opened a new note on my phone. Exit. Assets under my name. Fridge router, washer, dryer, kitchen. Aid mixer car title. I walked around the house like a quiet auditor, snapping pictures, noting receipts. I didn't confront anyone. No declarations, no drama, just records. I wasn't leaving yet, but I was already gone. In that kind of quiet, you start building a firewall, not the kind with passwords, but the kind that hardens you. I made mental lists as I moved. Who had access to what? What was still tied to my credit card? Where could I be erased next? I sat down on the edge of my bed. The laminated card, Rachel, still staring up at me, rested in my palm. I folded it in half, tucked it into my purse. Next time they forget I was here, I'll make sure the silence has my signature on it. I told them I was reorganizing, cleaning up some clutter before December rolled in. That gave me a reason to quietly walk through every room of the house without anyone asking questions. They probably assumed I was nesting before moving out. How convenient for them. The signs were there. My photos weren't on the hallway wall anymore, replaced by Tilda's graduation shots, framed wedding invites of cousins, even a print of Sterling in his old Navy uniform. Nothing with me in it, not one. I checked the Wi-Fi settings on my phone. The network used to be called RoseNet. That was gone too. It was now Vance Home Secure. I walked into the pantry, not looking for food. I was looking for whatever they hadn't thought to hide. And there it was, wedged behind a bottle of turmeric and a container of fiber chews. A slim, glossy pamphlet titled Aftercare Instructions, Juvederm Fillers. I stood there, holding it like it might explode. I remembered Denora's comment last week. Doctor said not to use a straw for a few days. She'd said it while sipping soup from a spoon, like it was no big deal. And I'd believed her. She used the insurance I'd been paying for to fill her lips. I was scraping together gas money while she was smoothing laugh lines. It wasn't the money, it was the lie wrapped in that smug southern courtesy. I walked out of the pantry and straight into the study. No one noticed. They were out back, grilling something and drinking light beer, like nothing was cracked underneath this floor. The desk still smelled like my father. Cheap cologne, nicotine gum, and old receipts. I opened the bottom drawer and found what I didn't even know I was looking for. A folder with Sterling's name on it, neatly labeled, filed, organized. Each bank statement in that folder had one thing in common: savings deposits. Small ones. Regular. Every month I'd covered the house bills, he'd deposited another chunk into this account. March. April. July. September. It matched perfectly. Behind the last page was a trifold brochure. Bayliner Family Cruiser. Pre-Christmas delivery available. Handwritten notes in the margin. $5,500 down. Nov 28. Finalize financing before December. I checked the calendar. November 25th. Thanksgiving was yesterday. They'd planned to order a fishing boat the day after I paid the bills. I sat there, staring at that brochure, heart steady, not broken, just done. They didn't need me for love. They needed me for leverage. And once I handed over the last check, they had plans for their freedom. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I pulled out my phone, photographed every page, front and back, uploaded them to a private email address under a new name I'd created the night before. In my notebook, I started building a timeline, month by month. What I paid, what he saved, matched it all. I wrote down something Sterling had told me last year when I bought a new tire for the truck. Keep this house running and you'll always have a room here. I underlined it, right next to a deposit he made for $300 that same week. It wasn't neglect, it was strategy. I wasn't being ignored, I was being harvested. I remembered Tilda smirking when she saw me doing dishes. Her comment, "You love playing house, don't you?" Now I knew she meant it literally. They gave me the chores and took the credit. And still, I stayed. Until now. I logged into every shared account: gas, electricity, security, groceries. I canceled the auto-pays, changed passwords, flagged my bank for suspicious behavior, and locked my credit file. When I called the internet provider, the rep said, "Wait, you're the one paying for all that. I always assumed it was Mr. Vance. I laughed, not out of humor, just the absurdity. I made 2 new folders on my drive. One called Proof, the other, Exit Plan. That evening, the house got quieter. Dinner happened without me. I didn't come down. No one asked why. Later, I returned to my room, holding the boat brochure like a contract. I didn't tear it. I slid it under my pillow like a loaded secret. They planned for life without me. I'm planning for life where they can't touch me. Joss knocked on my door around 7. She didn't wait for a response, just cracked it open with her head down and charger in hand. It was just a formality. She knew I had the same cord as hers. She hovered at the threshold like a child caught between 2 birthdays. "You can grab it," I said, not turning away from my laptop. She stepped in, slow, careful, like the floor might collapse beneath her. She unplugged the charger and stood there with it in her hand for a few beats too long, eyes darting to the window, to the carpet, anywhere but me. "They told me not to say anything," she said, almost under her breath. "Said if I did, I'd be next." I didn't blink, didn't ask who they were. I didn't need to. She looked up finally, guilt stretched across her face like a sunburn. I held her gaze, not with anger, but with an understanding that probably scared her more. "They're not scared of me leaving," I said. "They're scared of what happens if I stay and start speaking." Joss looked like she wanted to cry, but didn't. She nodded once, then left the room. The charger was still in her hand. I didn't remind her. I waited until the hallway was quiet again before getting up. I didn't even know where I was going, just needed to move. Something in me itched, the way animals get when the weather's about to turn. I ended up near the hallway by the dining room, where they usually hang seasonal decorations. There was a new frame on the wall. I stopped walking. It was the Thanksgiving photo. The one I set up on the tripod. The one I arranged. The one I counted down for and pressed the button on. Everyone was in it. Except me. I stepped closer. It was framed in brushed bronze. Sterling always liked heavy metal frames, made things feel official. In black marker, someone had written on the back, "Thanksgiving 2024, Family Together." Together. I was invisible ink. My breath came shallow. I touched the glass, not to smudge it, just to feel something real under my fingers, something that proved I wasn't imagining this. Sterling had said, "Let me frame this one for the church bulletin." And I had smiled, handed him the flash drive without question. I didn't notice I wasn't in the shot. I was too busy cleaning up. No one asked why I wasn't in it. Or worse, they did, and nobody cared. Back in my room, I sat at the desk, pulled out my notebook, stared at a blank page, tried to journal, wrote 3 lines, then scratched them out. They didn't sound true, not even to me. Instead, I grabbed the folder I'd labeled Essentials. Inside were receipts, warranties, bills, every single thing I had paid for in that house. I updated the list, added notes on where each item was located. Microwave, still in kitchen, Wi-Fi router, next to TV, washer-dryer, basement, under tarp. I opened my phone, typed a message to Thad. "You ever feel like a ghost in your own family?" Deleted it, typed again. "Can you recommend a moving company?" Deleted that too. This wasn't new, but it wasn't vague anymore. It was systemic, organized, like I was being erased from a family ledger. I started another list. Mom's speech at Tilda's bridal shower, no mention of me. Dad's retirement party. I wasn't invited, even though it was at our house. Christmas 2022 card. Love the Vances. My name, not there. At some point, it stops being painful. It just becomes numbers, patterns, a kind of quiet accounting. I stood and started moving through the house again, slower this time. I placed sticky notes under furniture, small ones, the color of vanilla. On each, I wrote my name and the date of purchase, snapped a photo, saved it to a cloud folder labeled Proof. I backed up my laptop to a hard drive. Not because I feared losing files, but because I feared having someone else decide what got deleted. I sent a message to my old landlord. "Is that studio above the bakery still open?" He replied, "Yeah. You thinking of coming back?" I didn't answer right away. My fingers hovered. Then, "Yes, I'll take it." I looked around my room. It used to feel like mine. Now it felt like borrowed space. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were just trying to delete me, quietly. Like I'd been a mistake they could scrub out with time and silence. Later that night, while cleaning out old emails, I came across one forwarded by mistake. It was from Denora. Subject line: "Removing her from the photo was easier than expected." I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. I used to think exhaustion was something you felt in your body first. Heavy arms, slow steps. But lately, it started somewhere else. Somewhere under the skin, behind the eyes. Like walking around wearing grief on your shoulders, but pretending it's just a light jacket. That evening, I passed by the dining room, holding a basket of folded towels. Just another chore they didn't ask for, but one I kept doing anyway. Denora and Tilda were sitting at the table, laughing over something. I paused. Tilda was holding a necklace, turning it in her fingers. I recognized the box. I'd ordered it weeks ago. Custom engraving. Something simple but heartfelt. "You always know exactly what I like," Mom said, squeezing Tilda's hand. I stood still in the hallway. My fingers clenched the towels tighter. I didn't say a word. They weren't just taking credit for what I did. They were assigning it to someone else, right in front of me. And the worst part? It didn't shock me. I smiled as I walked past. My stomach churned so tight I thought I'd throw up before I reached the laundry room. What's worse, not being seen or being erased while you're still standing in the same damn room. After dinner, I washed dishes. Tilda sat at the island, scrolling on her phone, updating her job application. The one I rewrote for her last week. Sterling leaned back in his chair and said, "She's the real backbone of this house." Denora chimed in, "She just never stops giving." No one looked at me. I stood there, my hands in warm water, replaying every dollar I'd given this family, every shift I'd picked up, every night I ate crackers for dinner so I could cover someone else's bill. And they just kept talking like I wasn't there. That night, as I loaded the last plate into the dishwasher, Denora came up behind me. Quiet. Too quiet. "I had a scare at the clinic," she said, voice low, shaky. "Could be something serious." "They need to run more tests." I turned around. "The insurance," she added. "You'll keep covering it, won't you?" I nodded, mouth dry, not trusting myself to speak. She touched my arm and walked away. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat on the edge of my mattress, the room lit only by the blue glow of my laptop. I logged into the insurance portal. Claim submitted. Procedure: cosmetic injections. I stared at the screen. Cosmetic. Not cancer, not cardiac, not even dermatology. I clicked over to her Instagram. There she was. New profile picture. Her face brighter, cheeks lifted, lips fuller. Caption: feeling refreshed. I closed the tab, closed the laptop. I'd been eating store-brand oatmeal so she could smooth out her wrinkles. I got up, walked to the dresser, and picked up the small gift box. The one that held the necklace they said was from Tilda. I held it in my hand a moment, then dropped it into the trash can without ceremony. Not out of anger. Out of mourning. I opened my budgeting app. One by one, I removed every auto payment linked to my account. Gas, water, electric, pest control, cable, Insurance. I opened my email and typed one short message to my employer's HR. Please confirm termination of dependent coverage for Denora Vance effective immediately. I hit send. Then I changed the Wi-Fi password. I didn't announce it, didn't leave a note, just changed it. They'd figure it out soon enough. Back on my laptop, I created a new folder on my desktop, named it Receipts for War. Inside, I saved screenshots, bank statements, photos of labeled items. I was done crying, done shrinking myself. If they were going to force me out, I wasn't going quietly. Before bed, I picked up my phone, opened Mom's contact, deleted it. No name, no number, no obligation. They could call it cold. I called it necessary. If peace means burying myself to keep them warm, I choose the cold. I'd started boxing up my things in silence, not in a rush, just a few pieces at a time. A framed print here, a set of towels there. I labeled each item with a sticky note. Paid by RD, 2023. Simple, quiet. I didn't walk through the house like a ghost anymore. Ghosts linger. I was detaching. Coldly, carefully. I skipped dinner that evening. Ate a peanut butter sandwich upstairs with the door locked. No one came knocking, but I could hear them below. Forks clinking. Tilda laughing louder than usual. When I stepped out to use the bathroom, she caught me. Walked right into my room without knocking and saw the half-packed suitcase at the foot of my bed. "Planning a trip?" she asked with that condescending little smirk she'd perfected in high school. "Planning a life," I said. She walked out without replying. At dinner the next night, Sterling leaned back in his chair and said real casual, like we were all just having sweet tea on the porch, "Just don't take anything that doesn't belong to you, Rosie." Denora added, "If you need help figuring out which things are truly yours, we can help." That wasn't subtle. That was a warning. I didn't look up. I chewed my food. I nodded once. Later that night, Sterling came to my door. "I've got receipts for half the stuff in this house," he said through his teeth. "Don't push it." I didn't flinch. I slipped my phone into my pocket before I opened the door. The voice recorder was already running. "So do I," I said, staring him dead in the eye. He walked away. I uploaded the recording to my cloud and labeled it Threat 1127.wave. Then I opened the folder where I'd stored receipts, credit card statements, Amazon order histories. Added more, rearranged into subfolders, furniture, kitchen, shared utilities. I texted Thad. "What's the legal definition of theft in Louisiana if you own something but someone else tries to claim it?" He replied in under a minute. "Depends. Why?" "Just prepping," I wrote. Next morning, I came down for coffee and stopped in the kitchen doorway. Denora was standing by the sink, holding a small box. I knew that box. Inside it was the family ring, handed down from her mother, supposed to go to me when I turned 21. She handed it to Tilda like it was a party favor. Tilda opened it, gasped. "Guess who's officially the woman of the house?" She beamed, slipping it on. I didn't say a word, just watched. I remembered the night Denora had made that promise to me. She was standing in my doorway, holding that same little box. Told me one day it'd be mine, because you carry the weight, not just the name. Now, I didn't even get a conversation. It wasn't about the ring. It was what it stood for. Identity, legacy. The unspoken line between belonging and being erased. And that line had been crossed, again, and again, and again. That night, I canceled the last remaining shared subscription, security system access. I didn't announce it. I opened a new bank account under a fresh email address and rerouted my direct deposit. I cleared a corner of my room. No frames, no clothes, no anything that could be mistaken for sentimentality. I was prepping to vanish without a whisper. I updated my exit plan. Step 6. Notify landlord. Step 7. Pick up U-Haul under a different name. I didn't want revenge. I wanted erasure. Mine from their lives, and theirs from mine. Just before going to bed, I wrote something on a sticky note and walked it down to the kitchen. No one saw me. I opened the cutlery drawer and stuck the note in the back, right behind the forks. Denora always started there first in the morning. Every item I take has proof. If you lie, you'll face more than silence next time. It was early. The house still held the cold of night, and the kitchen smelled faintly of whatever they'd burned in the oven the night before. I wasn't hungry. I hadn't been for days. I opened my laptop, mostly out of habit, planning to check shipping updates for a few things I'd ordered for the move. That's when I saw it. Forwarded from Tilda. Probably by mistake. Subject line read, "Follow-up from Mom. Just let her go quietly." I clicked it. Denora's words were clipped, almost clinical. "Let's not engage. She'll be out soon. This house will finally feel like home again." Like I was a tenant whose lease had run out, like they were waiting for the last box to be gone so they could breathe again. I stared at the email for a long time. Not sad, not surprised, just done. I opened my encrypted folder, added the email, renamed it Final Straw 1128. They'd stopped pretending. I should, too. Mid-morning, I walked down to the mailbox. On the way back in, I paused by the old tree near the driveway. That tree had outlived both the tire swing and the promises that came with it. I sat in the living room for a while. Empty house. Quiet. My fingers hovered over my phone, heart not quite racing, just waiting. Then I typed, "Did my family ever talk to you about me?" I hadn't spoken to him in 4 years. Not since we broke things off, or so I thought. He replied hours later. I read it in the bathroom, the door locked, fan humming loud enough to make me feel alone. "Yeah, your mom told me you were emotionally volatile. She said I should be careful, that it'd get worse." I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because it finally made sense. She hadn't just erased me from the house. She'd rewritten the story of who I was. I printed the message, added it to the folder, stapled it to the email from Tilda, punched holes in the corners, labeled the document, Sabotage Chain 2019-2024. I didn't shake. I didn't scream. I circled dates, drew arrows, highlighted names, Sterling ignoring my promotion, Tilda taking credit for my resume edits, Denora calling me unstable behind closed doors, then asking me for insurance money the next day. It wasn't drama. It was design. This wasn't concern. It was character assassination served on floral stationery. I opened my notebook and wrote, "I wasn't unstable. I was inconvenient." That night, I sent Thad the files. Told him I wanted to draft a statement for potential defamation and emotional abuse. Nothing flashy, just legal, just real. I typed a post, kept it in drafts. If they call me unstable, let the world see my version before they finish theirs. I didn't hit post. Not yet, but it felt good knowing it was there. I read Denora's email again, not because I needed more pain, but because every word now served as proof. They wanted me gone. Good. I renamed my folder. Countdown 72 HRs. If they want me gone, I'll leave a footprint so clear no one will forget who they buried. The alert came in at 2:46 a.m. Bank login attempt failed. I rubbed my eyes half asleep, thinking maybe I'd forgotten a password or triggered something myself. But when I opened the app, there were 4 more failed logins, all within 20 minutes. IP address, Bossier City, specifically the house Wi-Fi. I sat up slowly, blood thick and cold. This wasn't emotional anymore. This wasn't about who said what or who forgot to love who enough. This was theft. I took screenshots of every alert, saved them in a fresh folder. Bank breach 112129. Emailed the folder to Thad, added timestamps in the subject line. Then I called the bank's emergency line, had all accounts frozen, added two-factor authentication, and set up geolocation alerts. I changed my recovery email, security questions, even disabled access from devices I no longer recognized. They called me a leech, but they were trying to drain me to the last cent while I was still under their roof. That was the last line. By 4:15, Thad had replied, "That's cybercrime. Save everything. Document every move. Don't engage directly." Already done. I created a folder on my external drive titled Digital Theft, loaded it with screenshots, login logs, app notifications, email trails, added audio from the threat Sterling made outside my door last week. I drafted a cease and desist letter, straightforward and clean. To Sterling and Denora Vance, cease all attempts to access my personal financial accounts. Any continued breach will be pursued through criminal and civil courts. I CC'd Thad, BCC'd myself. Then I contacted my old therapist, asked for a copy of my last psychological evaluation, signed, dated, clear, just in case. They were building a narrative. I was building a file. By the time sunrise stretched thin across my blinds, I'd labeled every folder, encrypted every drive, and locked every backup. Around 9 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Joss. "Mom said if you resist, they'll go legal. She's talking to someone in psych." Second text. "They're planning to say you're unstable, that you're a danger to yourself, committable." I sat still, didn't panic, just stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I got up, pulled my hair into a loose bun, and opened my front-facing camera. Started recording. No makeup, no filters. Just my voice, steady and calm, even as my stomach turned. This is my record. If anything happens to me, this is who they are. This is what they've done. I laid out the timeline, pointed out the email, the breach, the threats. I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry, just told the truth, clearly, plainly, like a deposition to the world. When I finished, I uploaded it to an unlisted YouTube link, titled it, "If this ever goes public, you'll know why." I sent it to Thad, to Joss, to Flora. Then I went further. I compiled a flash drive with all the files, printouts, logs, passwords, audio, video. Labeled it Fire Insurance. Prepared envelopes for my landlord, my job's HR department, and my attorney. Included letters explaining the situation, calmly, directly. Set up a timed Dropbox email. If I go 48 hours without logging in, release all documents. Around noon, I walked to the post office and dropped the 3 envelopes in the blue box. I didn't shake, I didn't stall. On the way home, I stopped by the grocery store, bought toothpaste, granola, and dog treats. Something about picking up essentials made everything feel more certain. That night, I folded clothes with the window open. Air felt cleaner, even though it was the same street, same wind, same house. Until the shouting started. Sterling's voice, loud and angry, cut through the front yard. "I know what you're doing, Rose. You think you're clever? You think this'll end well for you?" I didn't move from the bed, just reached over, opened my phone, hit record. "They didn't think I'd fight back," I whispered. "Now I'm recording everything." I woke up to a storm of notifications, dozens of tags, messages, and screenshots. I didn't even need to open Facebook to know what they'd done. The post was simple, polished, exactly their style. "We did everything we could for her. Sometimes love is not enough. Please keep us in your prayers." The comments were worse than the post. "She always seemed off." Such a shame after all they did for her. Prayers for your strength. No one asked for my side. No one ever had. I sat in bed, phone in hand, pulse steady. I didn't comment, didn't rage. I opened my notes app and wrote, "They called me ungrateful. I just stopped financing their silence." Then I pulled out the video I recorded last week, added a quiet intro. This is their version. Now, here's mine. I didn't make it public, just uploaded the link to my legal drive, documented, safe. I spent the rest of the morning doing what needed to be done. Final packing, receipts photographed, boxes labeled. Each one marked with contents, date, and ownership initials. When I reached the kitchen, I checked the cutlery drawer. The sticky note was still there, untouched. It read, "Every item I take has proof. If you lie, you'll face more than silence next time." I smiled to myself. Quiet power never had to announce itself. The phone rang. It was Flora. "Your cousin saw the Facebook post," she said. "She knows the truth. We're behind you." I thanked her. No drama, no tears. I didn't need everyone to believe me anymore, just the right ones. Before leaving, I shut off the Wi-Fi router, last utility under my name. I placed the equipment on the counter, coiled the cords neatly, and left the final bill taped to the top. The sun was sharp but not warm. The driveway smelled like the old garage floor, faint oil, last year's leaves. I rolled the last box toward my car when the front door creaked open. Sterling stood there, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Denora behind him, dabbing her eyes without tears. Tilda leaned in the doorway, ring glinting, smirk proud. Not one of them said a word. Then the barking started. I turned and saw him, our old dog Baxter, pulling against his leash until it snapped free from the porch rail. He ran straight toward me. I crouched low. He lunged into my arms, whining, tail wagging like he hadn't done in months. I looked at the house, looked them all in the eyes. "He remembers who fed him," I said. They didn't answer. They never did. I opened the passenger door. He jumped in. By evening, I was in my new apartment. Smaller, simpler, quiet. I unpacked my laptop, my folders, my router, set up the desk against the wall near the window. Clean air came through the screens, unfiltered. One of the last things I pulled from my bag was the monogrammed napkin I'd folded at Thanksgiving, DA for Denora and me. Still folded, still mine. I placed it on the desk, not to mourn. Just to remind myself I'd survived. Baxter snored gently on the rug, soft warmth, unexpected loyalty. My inbox pinged. Flora had sent me a list of local events and wrote, "You should speak at one. Your voice matters." I stared at that sentence. Your voice matters. I opened a new browser tab, titled The Draft Post. I was the leech. Here's the truth. Then I typed, "Family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up when you're no longer paying." And I hit publish.